I'm now joined by Alexandre Crevaux-Asatiani, who is the foreign spokesperson for the United National Movement, which is currently the biggest opposition party in Georgian parliament. Hello, sir. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
So, what could you say about yesterday's elections? Were they fair or were they stolen?
They were stolen. There's just way too much evidence to say that these elections were not just unfair, they were radically manipulated, and this mounting evidence of just countless irregularities. We're talking about ballot stuffing. We're talking about people voting multiple times. We're talking about people being arrested at the stations, people being beaten up violently at the stations, regular people, observers being violently assaulted. One of our observers, for example, was detained just for filing a lawsuit against an obvious case of voter fraud, and she was released only after the elections were already over. We saw the deployment of special troops. We saw the deployment of criminal organizations in various precincts. The evidence is mounting. What happened yesterday was not normal. It was a special operation. It was managed at the highest levels in the Kremlin. They already knew ahead of time exactly what personage they were going to write themselves, and that's what happened. There was nothing fair, and that's why we do not recognize the results that the Central Election Commission has published.
So it is the results that they have published show about 53% for the Georgian Dream, the ruling pro-Russian party, and the combined opposition parties, the combined opposition for coalitions, they combined get around 40% of the vote. Is there something that's surprising about this result?
It's absolutely surprising because it's actually upside down of what every statistical data was showing us. First of all, we're talking about the highest voter turnout under Georgian Dream's rule, and that's not because...
It's 60%, around, right. 58, 59%.
And the reason why that's important is because we saw a record number of young people coming out to vote, people who were angry at the Georgian Dream government, and people who were desperate to save the European integration of this country. Somehow, despite that massive voter turnout, Georgian Dream managed to write itself a higher result than it ever got in the past, even in the 2012 election when it was legitimately a high polling party. Now we know that its popularity ceiling is at 35%, completely concentrated among criminal networks or public workers who are afraid that they might lose their job if they voted for someone else. And somehow that 35% was translated into 53%. That is statistically impossible.
And how about your party?
So my party was given by the Central Election Commission a 10%, which was really the most ridiculous part of this fraud, because what we saw is that our party and other opposition parties, we had separate exit polling done, and we saw that throughout that whole that different statistical methodology, we saw that we had the same consistent results. We saw that our party was supposed to get 20 to 25%. We saw other parties. It was
supposed to be, in the polling, it was supposed to be the highest number among the opposition coalitions.
Right. We were supposed to be at the number one spot with 20 to 25%, and the other three opposition coalitions receiving close, but a little bit less. But that doesn't really matter. It didn't really matter which position you were in. But what's interesting is that at the end of the day, when all the votes were counted, we saw that UNM's results, more than any other party, were drastically lower than what everyone was expecting. The other three coalitions had more or less what polling data was showing us, more or less. And UNM saw a decrease of 400,000 votes. 400,000 votes that everyone was expecting UNM to receive just disappeared and somehow ended up in Georgian Dream's coffers. And that is the biggest question. How? Did that have something to do with the fact that it was a Venezuelan communist-owned company that was handling the voting count, the electronic vote count? Did that have something to do with the fact that for weeks we had been warning observers from the international community that there was a massive scheme to confiscate and steal IDs in regions where we were polling high? Maybe all of that together combined, but there was clearly a special operation taking place.
Mm-hmm. And there were also, on the election day, there were also reports of members of your party being beaten up, intimidated. What could you tell us more about that?
So we saw a major case of ballot stuffing happen in the town of Marneuli, which is in southern Georgia, where traditionally our party has fared quite well. Somehow Georgian Dream ended up getting close to 80% in the district, where They've never really gotten more than 50. That kind of difference just doesn't make any sense. When we saw the ballot stuffing, our representative at the precinct started complaining, but just very, very in a calm way, to not kind of being accused of being provocative. He was met with 10 guys, obvious criminals, outside the precinct station who violently assaulted him. That was just one example.
Were they sent by the government, you think?
Yeah. So what happened throughout the day, what we saw in various precincts across the country, not just in towns, but also in the center of Tbilisi, we saw criminal organizations. Young men with obvious ties. Everyone in the neighborhood knows that they are criminals. They're the drug dealers of the neighborhoods. They were standing outside of the precincts to intimidate people, to scare people. And anytime some of our observers would go up to them and tell them that it was illegal to stand within 100 meters of the polling station, the response would be violence. One of our observers, a young girl, 25 years old, she was assaulted. They threw a glass bottle at her. She ended up hospitalized. When someone tried to complain about that issue, that person, another girl, was arrested, sent to the police station, and when we sought to have her released, they closed down the police station using special forces. What happened yesterday was not normal. There was way too much violence.
And before the elections, Bidzina Ivanishvili, the founder of Georgian Dream, the billionaire who is reported to be the most powerful Georgian, he said that he could ban some of the opposition. Do you take this seriously? Are you scared?
Are we scared? No, because we've been used to his persecutions for the past 12 years. Let's not forget that we are a party whose leader and founder, President Mikhail Saakashvili, is in prison today. We're also a party who's had hundreds of members in prisons, thousands of members beaten up. I myself have drank quite a lot of pepper spray because of Georgian Dream assaults. We're used to that, and we know that that's part of the cost of what it is to fight for democracy in Georgia. So no, we're not afraid. But we are expecting a new wave of persecutions if the Georgian people does not take this crisis as an opportunity and does not defeat Bidzina Ivanishvili once and for all.
Because when I hear banning opposition, it reminds me of the worst totalitarianisms of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's similar fate awaits Georgia, perhaps?
Yeah, so he literally said a Nuremberg-style trial against the opposition, and some people in his party added against the opposition and their voters. So this is looking like it's going to be a massive wave of persecutions. When that begins, we don't know yet. But we're convinced that that kind of stuff will happen. Hundreds of our members already have investigations started against them. We saw just the day before the election, people related with American think tanks having their homes raided by the police. I live myself with the fear that at any moment I might get home and I might hear a big knock on my door because someone decided that it was time for me to get arrested. Yes, that's absolutely real. Everyone knows it's real. It will happen. And it's for us to make sure that we turn the page of that dark history and we move for a proper European integration.
Well, thank you very much for your time and thank you for the interview.
Thank you.
You're welcome.